Okay, we are ready for the first hand history, and this is Ahille22's hand history. So welcome, this is Aarnimetsa from www.pokerimania.com, and welcome to our Guerrilla coaching, where 3 lucky persons will get a hand history review for their play. And the first game is a 50-50 $1.5 game played in last December in PokerStars. So let's get on with it. And Ahille, you can comment on the chat, and we can then look through some of these hands. And actually, I'm going to mark that we are not going to see the known hole cards, because it's going to be a bit better that way. First hand, we are having kings. That's going to be great. I was hoping for a raise. We got one, and 2 callers. That's what you want to see with kings, and you don't want to see an ace. So kings have a reputation to be some ace magnets, and in these kind of flops, it's going to be a bit nasty, because you need to be playing a bit more careful against 2 guys. So I think checking as the first actor is fine. And I also think that if you are facing a small bet, it's going to be okay to call it at the start of the tournament, because even though you are having 2 opponents, they are limpers and they are callers, so generally they are going to have weaker hands. But unfortunately, there will be weaker races as well. And bet on the turn, it's okay. I'm perhaps thinking more to pot control this because it's still going to be likely, and if you are wanting to get 1 street of value, we can get it on the river. So we are having some protection from the flush draw by betting here, but I think in general this is a bit greedy approach. And especially as you are the preflop raiser, if you would be against thinking players or regs, which is quite unlikely because we have an opponent that limp called here and just cold called on the big blind. And Kaleon asks actually a good question on Ahille, that are you planning to bet the river as well if you are betting turn? And in general, in this situation, even though our opponents are having draws like gut shots and flush draws, it's still going to be, as you are against 2 opponents, it's going to be more likely that at least one of your opponents is having an ace here. And getting value from opponents is going to be pretty hard. And as Marcus Weiss said, the turn doesn't really change anything, so checking turn would be logical after checking the flop. I'm thinking this as a pot control hand, and like kings pre-flop, they are pre-flop monsters. But when an ace hits and you are against 2 players, the value of the hand is not that great. So you are having showdown value, but you are not having as much showdown value as you would want. And if you are having a king, then it's going to be a great position to bet more and get more value. And I think that you can get like 1 street of value, and when the 9 of hearts hits, then it's going to be pretty easy to check fold. And our opponent had a jack 10, and a 10 on the flop is probably among the only hands that we are going to get value from, and that don't outdraw us with the 9 of hearts river. In general, I think that was well played. And we are having the opponent on the previous hand calling. Folding is perfectly fine, and it's about not getting us in a sticky situation. I think Jack 10 off is a hand that we can both open and we can fold in this situation. And for reasons for opening it, that we are having position, and with position those plays are getting more profitable and getting the value out of the fishier players. It's usually easier in position. And we are seeing a showdown, Jack 7 against Ace Queen. And let's go further. One guy limps again. Forking, relatively easy to fold. Queen Jack off. I think this is about a hand that I would open from the hijack pretty often. It's going to be a solid hand. You are stealing position to yourself. That the cutoff and button are pretty often folding. So I think this is a position that you could open as well. And actually, when you are folded, we don't care about that much because we are Guerillas, and Guerillas are going to get in and get out. So let's go through the uninteresting hands quickly so we can use more time with the more interesting hands. And this might be an interesting hand as you are in a big blind with an ace. So this is going to be slightly interesting, probably. I think checking this pre-flop makes the most sense, as this is not a great hand to start with, and we don't want to bloat the pot. And checking is fine. And if we are facing pretty much any bet 5-handed and the flop looks like this, I'm going to go for a fold here. Even though we are only needing 14% of equity, I'm going to be unsure if we are getting the 14% of equity on a 5-handed here. So, and Callion said that Ace-Jack plus would value raise. Yeah, then we could value raise, but Ace-9 is going to be too weak. It's not going to be connected. I think that we can even think about raising Ace-10 suited or Ace-9 suited as value, but it's going to be a hand that plays a lot better. Ace-9 off, it's just going to play pretty weakly post-flop. And usually if we are betting there pre-flop, we are betting to something around 240, 270 chips. Then we are getting a heads-up pot. There's a call, and there's 7th and off. If this would be 10-7 suited, I think completing would make sense, but folding is perfectly fine, especially if you are playing more than 20 tables at once. And I love the 50-50's blind structure, as we are getting antes in at the 40 to 80 level. And that's going to be a great structure for everyone that's aggressive, because now it makes a lot more sense to fight for the pots. And in 50-50s, the antes are really important. And why the antes are really important is that you are usually in a 50-50, you are having 8 or 7 or 9 players paying those antes. And when there are 9 players paying those antes, it's going to make a lot of sense to fight for the pots. And easy fold with this kind of action. And this is her or his first raise, so let's look what he got. We can't see it, so... And this should be an easy fold. And yeah, the same when our opponent starts shoving. First levels he's going to be just limping, and now he's shoving. Seems to be a recreational player, I'd say. Queen 9 suited. I think with this stack size it's going to be too weak to open. It should be profitable to open if we would be at the cutoff or button for sure, but this far away, nope. Jack 9 the same. Pocket kings on the big blind. Now we are hoping for value. And value we get. It's not going to be even a question of what do you do here. It's going to be get the money in with kings and hope to run good. Yay! It's going to be a win. And now we are getting the big stack. And getting the big stack in 50/50s is going to be really important. Because these games are games that they are really fun when you are having the big stack. And these games suck if you are having a middle stack near the bubble or at the bubble, because then the big stacks are going to abuse you, and also the small stacks are going to play pretty aggressively against you. So you are willing to have a big stack, and when we are having a big stack, we should be using it to abuse, and we are pretty much in the perfect position because we are getting the big stack when it's our big blind. So then we are having opportunities to abuse it from small blind, button, cutoff, immediate value. And as Calleon said, the Jacks plus would be okay in the king spot. I think also ace king is okay. Okay in there. And Deya, sorry I missed which stake of the game is. This is $1.5 game. And 9-6 suited. It's going to be nasty. I think it's one of those spots that, because of the pot odds, it's going to be marginally profitable to complete. But folding is fine, especially if playing larger number of tables. It would have been quite a great flop for someone with 6-9 suited. One of those flops that even when you don't flop a flush draw, you are pretty happy with what you got. And then our value from our big stack is diminished a bit by we are getting shoved upon pretty much every hand. But don't we worry, we are going to get those chances. Ace-5 is going to be one of those hands that's quite weak. And against a guy that's 57/5 and there are 4 people behind you, if this guy would have limped and you would be in the big blind, I think it would be an okay shove, but with this many players behind you and his stack size as it is, I don't think it's going to be a valuable enough hand. And of course these are 50/50s, so these games are pretty much, they are ending when we are getting to 5-handed, and then the prize pool is divided by half of the prize pool is divided by if you survive there, and rest of it is divided by the amount of chips you have. And if you are having exactly 3,000 chips, you are pretty much doubling your buy-in, and if you are having less chips, then you are having less than a double up. And the largest I have seen a hand history for a player that wins the game 6-handed by getting all the chips. So that's going to be the maximum you are getting, like 6 buy-ins from this game. So in these games it's going to be important not only to get in the money, but also to get in the money with a big stack. And yes, Ahille said that double the buy-in minus rake. So for example, these are $1.5 games, there's an 11 cents rake. So just for survival, you will be given $1.39. And if you are having 3,000 chips, you are getting another $39. So if you are having exactly 3,000 chips, then you are getting $2.78. And I'd say that we don't like that this Paul Duven is limping so much and he's also having a big stack. I think it's going to be lucky for us that usually these kind of guys don't hold the big stack for long. And he's pretty aggressive post-flop with nothing. I think he bet pretty much the... No, he called with queen high for 4 streets. Or 3 streets. That's not going to be profitable for him. But that's something that... With these kind of guys, when they're playing about 60% of their hands and they are raising only 8% of their hands. Usually with these kind of guys we want to go for value, we want to go for a bigger value bets, and we want to punish them for limping and calling way too much. And like Callahan said, very bluffable villain. That's like the opposite of bluffable. And that's a verb that pretty much shouldn't exist. But against those kind of players, you don't want to be bluffing that much, but you want to be playing for value. And if you are having, even if you are having like this Alestar had like top pair and no kicker, we are wanting to get value. Or top pair and not that great of a kicker. We still want to get value from these guys. Because they are playing with queen highs. Or they are calling with queen highs, so you are getting value for your top pair for sure. And also, when this kind of a villain that's not going to be very bluffable is on the big blind, we don't want to steal against him that much. And we'll see, there is going to be 6 players remaining. Now there are 6 players, so we are in the bubble now. And walks are always nice, and it makes a slight sense for him to give you walks, because this guy is having such a short stack, so he doesn't probably want to risk as much in those situations. And getting walks is pretty nice, because when you are getting walks, you'll know that you have played the hand perfectly. And Ahille, I think that if the small blind shoves, calling with ace-5 suited is really, really profitable. So the opponent doesn't need to be shoving, I'd say, more than about 50%. And Callahan said that was the main problem that came into my mind when this surprise coaching came. It's going to be about real games, like what happens really. It's not going to be about games that are like, wow, this is a game that I played awesome. This is going to be picking a game that you have played, and then let's see how you play in real life. So that's at least the idea. And I don't think neither one of these opponents made a mistake. Not calling with force. That's good play, because this guy, if he knows what he's doing, it's going to be, his range is going to be pretty tight, and this guy as well, especially when there's a shorter stack, so both of those guys should have range that is crushing pocket force. Oh wow. This is such a huge mistake. Shoving under the gun for 6-ish big blinds when there is a guy with only 2 big blinds. That's something that's game breaking, and I'll retract my statement that these guys know what they are doing. And the bubble lives on. And usually you are a bit worried when a bubble lives on, but I think in this case you are having quite a good position in the table to abuse these sort of stacks, so this might be good that the bubble lives on for you this time around. Usually when you are having a middle stack, usually you don't. Usually when you are a middle stack, you don't want to have the bubble to live on. And I don't think that I like the shove here. Like, first of all, we are against the biggest stack in here. And the biggest stack player has been calling really wide. And when there is this Ahille22, who has only only about the big blind left, when he calls, it's actually when this guy calls, he's making less of a mistake. So I think this is one of those hands that I wouldn't shove with ace-7 suited. Even though it got pretty good for you, not good enough. And this is like on the opposite. Like ace-7 suited, I don't think it's going to be a good shove. Everything taken into account, because this guy is going to call with a really short stack too often. And then when this guy is also going to call too often, it's going to be less of a mistake for him to call really wide. So it's going to be about like this hand. On the other hand would be, I think this would be an instant shove. And Calleon, like the biggest stack, can call pretty wide there. Yeah, especially when this guy is calling, so he's not making a big mistake by calling really wide there. And I think this pocket force should have been a shove. It's a hand that is way more solid than ace-7 off. And if you are shoving ace-7 off at the worst spot, then you should be shoving pocket force. And the bubble still lives on. And if this is one of the Ahille's less interesting hand histories, I'm thinking that the more interesting hand history would probably be too much for all the Guerillas. I think this is going to be those spots that it's any two shove spot, and this guy can't call you that wide. No, I think folding this is a big mistake. I should actually mark some of these hands. And that's actually a hand that we want to review later on. And this is only a shove for 2 big blinds. I think with ace-3 suited, this should be a shove as well. Because there is going to be a lot of dead money in the pot. This guy is going to call really rarely. So shoving here would make pretty much sense with a hand as strong as ace-3 suited. Let's actually take that one to review as well. And the bubble that just denies dying. Ace-7 with these stack sizes. Right now, there's still a guy that's going to call too wide, But I think this ace-7 is a better shove than the previous ace-7. And Caleon asks about the ace-3 suited spot. How to play the ace-3 suited spot if UTG min raises? Does it change anything? If UTG min raises, I think UTG is playing way better this hand if he min raises. Because if UTG min raises, and there are stupid players in this table, and so that's nothing on Ahille. I think Ahille has been the best player in the table thus far, from what we have seen. But if he min raises, someone like Paul Duven shoves and Alestaur or Hannibal calls, he can then fold with the 32 chips and get the 3000 chip, or the possible 3000 chips value of survival. And getting to the monies with just 32 chips, because the value of survival is a lot more in this spot. And there's also the additional value that if he only min raises here, he can then fold if there is a two-way all-in or bigger. And also, I think he's going to hide his stack size a bit more, so min raising would be a lot better option for him. And this ace-7 off is a shove, and that's a better shove, and I think that ace-7 shove was plus EV. And now we are pretty much just waiting that this guy is getting eliminated with the medium stack size. It's going to be interesting, and I'll stop this for a moment to ask Ahille, what should you do in here? I think this is going to be one of those key hands in the tournament. And I'm saying that even though this Paul Duven guy has been calling too much, I think shoving in here would be the perfect way to combat that. If he calls something around 50% that he has done in the early game, there's going to be so much shit in his range that you are going to have so much value in shoving this. And when you are having stack sizes of 3000 and more chips in here, 3600 chips, the value of just surviving is going to be way less than in a general sit and go. So shoving this is, I think it's going to be the best option, and that's well played. That's the way to increase your chip stack in these. And when Hannibal has folded, this is also an any two shove spot. You'll need to shove this hand to accumulate chips, and great, that's a shove. And is this going to be the last hand of the game? Nope. Because Hannibal wins all the hands. Having a shove here, perfect. But you can't beat Hannibal and his elephants that are marching over Alps with just 444 chips. And this is also one of those situations that if this guy would be a reg, I think this could even be a shove. But not against this guy currently. And yeah, as we have seen, Hannibal just denies dying in the bubble. And Paul Duven calls. And this is one of those spots that you are going to shove. Yeah, that's great. Shoving some more chips in. Paul Duven limps. Actually, this could be an option to just push. Completing here is interesting for sure, but I think that we have seen this guy limp fold so many times that just shoving is going to be fine. And even if you get called by this Paul Duven, you are risking a small portion of your stack, and this guy is going to fold almost always. So, and if you want to bluff these guys, you should do it pre-flop. And ace-8 we would get called and that wouldn't matter. But I would think it would be a better play. Play to push it pre-flop. And big blind folded pre-flop. So let's say that you are not going to be too needy if there are players that are going to fold their big blinds against a limp. So that's an advanced strategy, that if you are thinking that you are spoofing your chips away post flop, just fold your big blind. That's going to be awesome. And Hannibal... No, this Alestor must have been sitting out. Because he's now having 0 chips and we can't see his hands. And this Hannibal that folded with 18 chips. 1-8 chips. And Hannibal won this whole tournament with over 6,000 chips. So never give up. Never give up. You can have the run of the Hannibal. And if this Alestor had been sitting out when you are also calling with Paul Duven, I think it makes it even worse. You should shove there, and when you are guaranteed that the big blind is dead money. So, I think in this tournament, I think we would have found something like 5 or 6 hands that could have played aggressively. So, I think that if you are playing sometimes with less tables, you should focus on how can you gain more chips with aggressive play in places. So, I think there should be some more thought to be more aggressive. And let's say that we are starting our next draw for the next Guerrilla coaching as we are finishing this one. So you are having the 2 guys, Rigsy and Neo, that have already sent me a hand history. You are going to be in on the second draw. And if you want to get in the second draw, you have 11 minutes, so 25:05 or 5 past 10 is going to be the limit. And if you want to get in the second draw, there's the guideline. And Ahille, he would have called you with ace-8, but it's a question about ranges. And the opponent had already, like, twice before he had limp folded pre-flop. But let's go through some of these hands. I think this was one of those hands that are key hands that this is something that you can inflict a lot of pressure on a smaller stack, and as you are both medium stacks, this is going to be one of those situations that you are getting a lot of value if you are pushing. And there is also the other way, that how to send in hand histories, that you can find your hand histories at HM Archive or user data folder on PokerTracker 4. And this is actually going to be slightly interesting. I thought that this is going to be an any two spot. Of course, because I forgot to paste the. Let's try pasted it. So I'd say that this is an any two shove spot, and this is an any two shove spot even if opponent is calling with 22%. And I'd say in the micros, I don't think that your opponents are calling with 23%. I think even the fishier players are just going to take getting in the money easily than risking all of their chips. And we can actually look like how much our opponent would need to call for it to not to be unprofitable for us to shove a crappy hand like ace deuce off, and it's 35%. And if we are looking at what does 35% range look like, I don't think that you'll have any opponent calling with that kind of a range. So, and even in then, when your opponent is calling 37%, ace deuce off is going to be close to break even anyway. So I think that's going to be one of the key hands where you missed value in this tournament. Like, if both players are playing perfectly, you are winning about 1% of the prize pool as equity. And that's going to be huge in these games. And there was also the ace-5 suited hand. And this was also that if Kriagen shoves, would you still call? And I think that's also something that we can pretty quickly look with Hold'em Resources calculator. So, our Guerrilla coaching is going to go to the next level. In 7 minutes, we are going to have another draw. So send me your paste bin addresses as private messages, and we'll see what the Guerillaing will look like. And Rixie, yeah, your hand history is in already. So like in this situation, Kriagen's optimal play would be to shove 33%. And you can call even wider than that. So if your opponent is just shoving, I think it's going to be, if he's shoving something like top 20%, it's going to be plus EV for you to call with ace-5 suited. And probably with any ace it's going to be still, like 20% it's going to be profitable to call with any ace. And just 15% it's going to be profitable with ace-5 suited. So you should never fold a hand if an opponent shoves and you are having this sort of situation. Then calling with ace-5 suited is going to be the optimal play most of the time. And Marcus White, can I send a hand history via Skype to be in a draw? Okay, when you are having my Skype, then you can also send it via Skype. And I think as Deja said that, I agree. I think Ahille played pretty well in there, and I think that what I would recommend as tuning for Ahille's game is to be more aggressive and not miss the spots that we talked about during this Guerrilla coaching. And just one tournament. It's going to be just one tournament. And I'm going to start building for our next draw. And as I said, the guys that are blogging at www.pokerimania.com, those are getting 2 entries. So you are getting some value out of blogging right now. Oh wow, now we are having a lot more. So we are having 3 more hand histories. And I'm going to start writing the names. Marcus Y will go through Skype. And he has been blogging since day 1 on our site, so he's going to be in anyways. Then there is going to be Carousel999, Kauris84, and there are still 4 minutes to go. And I'd say, Ahille, thank you for having a really interesting hand history with the bubble that never ends. And Kauris, of course, Kauris has been blogging on our site since day 1, so he's also getting two spots in the draw. And as Callion said that you got rewarded for fast action, now it would have been much tougher to get selected. Yeah, I think there's still pretty good equity for the guys that had the first opportunity. Like, if guys are blogging on our site, there's still about 1 in 4. About 1 in 4 or about 1 in 5 chance to get to this next... get in this next session, so... It's going to be good. And there will be opportunities for the final draw. I thought that this is going to take about 2 hours, but we can go a bit over. And there is still 2 minutes to take part to this second draw, and if you are taking part at the second draw, then it's also you are going to take part in the third draw. And Kauris84 says that my chance is about approximately 2% because of Riihimäki. Yeah, it's been told on our Finnish site that guys from Riihimäki are the luckiest, or as we learned during our meetup, I just think that the guys from Riihimäki, they are having the best outlook on life. Life that when life gives you lemons, make some lemonade. One minute to go. Or this is the final minute. Final minute to be part of the 3 amigos. And getting a quick hand review. And I'm probably the worst in 30-minute hand reviews, as we got to, I think, like 10 minutes overtime with the first one, so let's try to do it a bit quicker this time around. Okay, we got also hand histories from Rotman. So, and Rotman has been blogging on our Finnish site and also on the English site. I don't know, should that count for 2 blogs? If they would have been both active during this month, they would be, of course, counted as 2, but I don't think I have seen activity in the English blog in a month, so you'll get just 1 extra life. And now I'm checking my private message inbox for the last time. We are having a lot more participants in the second draw, and the time is up. And if Marcus Y is running 10 tables at the moment, then we are going to take it later on, or trying to get it to do, or try to do something more interesting if Marcus Y wins. Let's get something to do. And Kauris is not only a winner, he's a double winner. Like if Kauris 84's hand history doesn't work, then the next hand history we are going to try is Kauris 84's. So it's going to be about trying to see what Kauris 84 gave us this time. So let's have some break music and I'll get everything in order in a while.